All
Oh
right, I
yeah,
think we're
absolutely.
live. Yeah. Welcome everybody to the first webinar of 2026. Energy Domain team here. Our two fearless leaders, Ben Heiselman, our CEO, Malcolm Smith. First time I think Malcolm's joined a webinar with us, our president, and I am Scott Hamilton. I'm the vice president of product. I just work with the development teams. So these guys lead the business. But yeah, we got a lot to cover today. We haven't had one of these in a few months. Getting through the holidays, we had a lot of stuff going on. We deployed quite a few things throughout November, December, and even as recent as 2 weeks ago. Made a big change. So we'll cover several things, including some data and some calculated data, derived data that we're doing. We integrated a new table. We're going to talk about our new map settings panel and how that sets us up for the future of continuing to develop new map features and whatnot. And then Malcolm's going to probably take us home talking about Data Stream Direct, our kind of direct API access product that we released a few months ago, and he's going to have that thing hooked up directly to Spotfire. So we know Spotfire is big in our industry and should be good. So one thing over the several webinars we've had, depending on where we are on your screen, you might have to move the screen around and shift us down, move us off the screen if you don't want to look at us. That is something that several people have brought up. They can't see what we're doing. So just understand that in the platform that we're using, you can move us out of the way. So after
Sounds
that,
good.
we'll kick it off, Ben.
Awesome. So I figured I know there's quite a few new faces today. Several of you have already seen this, so I'm not going to do a really deep dive on the demo outside of we're trying to keep the focus for this webinar on the new features, but I will just give a high level overview for those of you that have not seen this yet. So we've taken a pretty unique approach to subscriptions, and so I'll walk you guys through our subscription page here. This is typically relegated to accounts that have under 10 seats. So what we're really trying to do with this data product is open up the playing field, if you will, to the individual folks or the smaller shops that typically are priced out by companies like Enverus, IHS, others. This is an example of our subscription map that you first see when you create an account on Energy Domain. So similar to your Netflix accounts, Amazon, whatever, you have complete control over the subscription. So when you go to energydomain.com, and we'll put a link in at the end of this webinar, you can click create account. It throws you on this subscription map that looks just like this. So the default is actually paying monthly. You can subscribe by basin or by county, even if you just have an interest in data in a couple counties. Pretty much as simple as clicking the basin, add it to your cart, and check out. We've essentially tiered the basins and the counties 1, 2, and 3, just all based on activity. Obviously, Permian will be a tier 1, Basin, Williston, East Texas, so on and so forth. So once you're subscribed, it throws you on the subscription page. You can manage your subscription. You can add seats on the fly. It's all incredibly customizable and very transparent. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. I'll walk you guys through really briefly an example of an account that has nationwide access. So we've really tried, what we really try to do here is keep this incredibly simple. So you've got a filter on the left-hand side that drives the map and the table. Everything works synergistically here. So again, this is an example of our nationwide account. The very first thing that loads is a heat map. This is all based on well density. You guys will see the rig locations there. We are one of the only companies in the space that is tracking rig locations daily. We have some content on LinkedIn that kind of walks you guys through how we achieve that. Essentially, we are tracking every pad site daily using satellite imagery. We get about 70% of the rigs straight from the drilling contractors. The cadence kind of varies there. We have a process to dedupe those. We are actually tagging in our database when the pad sites are constructed and when the frac crews are on site as well. That will be coming into the app here in the next couple months to drive alerts. For now, what I'll do is zoom you guys into the Permian, and you'll see how performant the map is here. So everything loads very quickly. You can even zoom out and get a kind of a higher elevation look here. You'll see all the directional surveys. We've actually processed all these with AI. These are 3D surveys, and we'll have Malcolm and Scott again kind of walk you guys through the third level of this, which is the spacing algorithm that we built and the spacing header data that we put into the app in the last few weeks. Really simple. I'll just go in and select a well here on the map. So highlights it on the map, pulls it into the well table, opens up a really high level well card. So the intent here is not to show every field we have. These are just, kind of the highlighted fields, the high priority fields. We've landed all the directional surveys at the interval level. So we have our own, this is kind of our landing zones, if you will, in the app, which we call confirmed interval. And we've got a confirmed interval percentage in there as well. Along with that, we also have the tax roll and appraisal data for you land guys, mineral acquisition companies, non-op groups, et cetera. You have access to all the tax roll and appraisal data. Every well has a link directly to the state. So instead of hosting all the documents, which we can do at some point with a couple clicks, you can pull the permits, plats, whatever, directly from the state. This is available in, I believe, just about every state, especially in the unconventional plays. We also have our own proprietary production allocation algorithm, which we have actually just released a white paper on. So if you guys are interested in receiving that, I'm sure we'll also post that on social media here if we haven't already done so. It's kind of hard to keep up with Braxton, but um, we have put that together. So you can toggle between well level production, lease level, and we have all the well test data in the UI as well. And then in the table below, you'll see all the other well headers. These are our default fields. So you'll see the, measure depth, TVD, lateral length, permit spud, completion, reservoir, confirmed interval. So these again are the default fields. We have a deep appreciation for the fact that everybody, depending on their discipline, wants to see something a little bit different. So if you click the choose columns button, this actually shows every column in our database. So we have now, I believe, Scott, 109 headers.
Yep.
So you can search through those headers. You can also obviously just scroll down here. So if you're a landman, you want to add in legal descriptions, lease IDs, lease names, you can do that. As you scroll down, a little bit more reservoir focused or finance focused. If you want to look at calculated production metrics, 3, 6, 12 months, liquids, gas, BOE. We have cumes in here, completion data, water production, and then we have the gross perf intervals, perf top, perf bottom, and then we have our spacing. I figured this might be an appropriate time, Malcolm and Scott, if you guys want to talk a little bit about the spacing header data that we've uploaded, how we've achieved that, and our thought process behind it.
Yeah, I can dive in. So the spacing algorithm, this is a multi-chained algorithm that kind of works, right? So Ben mentioned that our 3D surveys, I pulled actual metrics this morning. We've digitized 209,000 directional surveys in the lower 48, right? So that's one thing that's the first component that we need. After that, we worked with NewTek to get our the Z maps from NewTek. So each isopack, if you will, each layer in the cake throughout all their lower 48 maps. That's the second component that we need to then land the wells inside the confirmed interval, kind of what Ben was just talking about. We're able to take these and actually land them in the intervals. At that point, we're able to kind of restrict the data, filter the data down to only run spacing off of the horizontal wells within the interval. So take Wolfcamp A, for example. There's about 15,000 wells that we've landed in the Wolfcamp A in the Permian Basin, right? So those 15,000 wells are then filtered down. Each well, each control well, we're going from surface to bottom hole across the lateral, breaking the well into 500-foot segments. So we break the well into different 500-foot segments. Let's take a 10,000-foot well, for example. We have 20 different segments. Each one of those segments, we take the midpoint of that segment, of that 500-foot segment, and we walk out to the left and to the right 2,000 feet, searching for the nearest well, right, within 2,000 feet. That's identifying kind of a neighbor to the right and a neighbor to the left within the same confirmed interval. So at that point, we'll do that throughout the whole length of the well. Again, for the 10,000-foot well, we've done that for 20 different segments. On those 20 different segments, we're able to find the minimum distance, the maximum distance, the average distance, and identify the well that is the neighbor to the right, the well that is the neighbor to the left. and then turn it and then do our percentage of bounding. So we don't want to say if a well is bounded or not bounded. We kind of want our users to say that. We want to give you a percentage across those 20 segments if we consider what the percentage bounded is. So again, if we're talking about a 10,000 foot well, 20 different segments, say 10 of them are bounded to the right, that well would be 50% bounded on the right by that other well that has been identified with its measurements. So that's our way of doing that. We're going to continue to lean into this and do more math. We're probably going to kick off in the next couple of weeks, adding the parent-child relationship. So going off of completion date, right? So my control well, I've identified the well to the right. I've identified the well to the left. I have all the math to support that data. Now I'm going to look at the completion dates as well, look to the right, and say which one came first, and that's the parent, right? So identifying those type of relationships, giving you more information to kind of hone in on your data, what you're interested in when you're building type curves. You're interested in building type curves off of parents, off of children. How do you want to evaluate that? We want to just support you guys to the best of our ability with that math.
I appreciate that, Scott. And obviously, we're going to dive into this a little bit through our Data Stream Direct product. Malcolm's going to jump in towards the end of this call. Obviously, all of these headers are accessible through the Data Stream product. If you are accessing them directly in the UI, it's basically as simple as checkboxing whichever header you want to add into the table below, and you can save your configuration. You can also actually share these amongst your team members as well. So if you have a large account with a bunch of seats, you don't want to have each user kind of configure the settings. You could have the super admin user go ahead and configure it and then share it amongst the team members. So once you've added those columns into the table, you can kind of reorder the columns however you want, so that when you come in and export the data, it's in the exact format that you would want each time. And this is obviously the most basic use case. I do want to jump in and show we had a huge deployment around our well header table, now leveraging AG Grid, and I'm going to have Scott here shortly jump into that. Before I do so, I did want to show some of the map settings here. So this is what I believe is a pretty big differentiator. We tried to keep this really simple. There are a lot of companies in the space that may not have a GIS tech on staff, doesn't want, especially in these areas that have very straightforward legal descriptions. When screening deals or mapping ownership or whatever, you want to be able to jump into the map and build complex, like multi-polygon shape files very quickly. So we allow for that, and this is pretty elegant. So you can go into the polygon tool here, and let's just say I'm looking at a deal in this section. It's as simple as just clicking on each vertice of the section here, double click to finish the first shape, and it will do a couple things. So it'll select every well that intersects both in the table and on the map here. This table is expandable, which I'll get into here in a bit. And then I basically have two options. I can save that as an area of interest, or I can actually keep drawing. So this is the big differentiator. You can now go in and build out as large of a position as you would like, as long as it doesn't exceed 10,000 square miles, which is pretty challenging to achieve. And I can keep building and building. And as I do that, I can then save that as an area of interest, call that AOI name, whatever you want, put a buffer around that of 0 to 10 miles. You can now custom color code those shape files, and you can do a fill or a no fill option. And the biggest key here is when you build these, obviously it's going to throw them on the map for you. But most importantly, it actually builds a shape file for you on the fly. So that AOI is now stored in my files, or that shape file is now stored in my files, which obviously then I could use it in any other application that accepts shape files, just preventing you from, especially for the smaller groups, preventing you from having to get an ArcGIS or QGIS license. You can do it directly on the UI. And now that the default settings are that when you build a shapefile, you will start to receive daily email notifications on activity. So anytime there's a new rig, a new permit, spud, or a new completion, it goes directly to the body of your email each morning and is separated by area of interest. One of the things, especially for you Texas operators, mineral buyers, non-op groups, whatever, we have the most up-to-date Texas permit data out of any product in the space. We are pulling all the permits the second that they are submitted to the Railroad Commission, and I'll show you guys that here in a bit, but that goes directly to the body of your email each morning. We show those as pre-permits in Texas. Most of those will not even have API numbers. Now, as far as the map settings go, we had a really simple key that was built in here before. We had a lot of feedback from our customers that they really wanted to customize their views and their presets. So when you're on the map here, if I select the map settings, we've now built out kind of a full map settings panel that allows our users to customize their view. So there's a number of ways you can use this. You can toggle on or off any of these layers. Obviously, you can kind of toggle between satellite, street view, default. You can change the heat map color scheme, the opacity, the intensity. These are the really cool features here. So being able to color by a number of different attributes. So if I wanted to color all of these wells by operator, I can do that pretty quickly. And the beauty of this is you can also customize the color schemes. So if I click the map key here, this will now show it'll apply kind of a default color scheme to this. If you're putting together a quick presentation and you want to color a particular operator differently, you want it to make, let's just say, Oxy, I'll put in this obnoxious yellow color, right? Like I can continue to modify these color schemes however I would like. You can also then size by. So you can size all the wells by a number of different production metrics. So you'll see cum BOE, cum gas, you've got 12 months BOE. So I'm just going to select 12 months BOE. And then when I go into the map settings, I can also change the sizing as well if I would like. Now, obviously, in this case, I have not even applied a filter. I can do so via the filter pane over here. This is obviously showing everything. The beauty of this is once you've applied all of these settings, whether you've changed the well labels, you want them to show at a different zoom level, again, all of that is completely customizable. Once I have applied those settings, I can then click the tools and presets and save that preset. You can have as many presets as you want. Scott, is there a limit?
Oh, no, not right now. No.
There's no limit. So you can have a number of presets and you can share those amongst your team members as well. This is kind of morphing into what we will eventually build, which is a full-on workspace. This is sort of the Band-Aid approach to that for now, but you can save that preset, reapply at any time. That's kind of a high level on the map key. We've gotten some really, really great feedback on that. Scott, is there anything I'm missing on the map key or on the map settings that you think our users would want to hear about?
No, not right now. The main thing is that this is shareable, right? Like Ben just mentioned, kind of getting into the workspace type concept. We've really been leaning in the last several months into making sure each one of these components around the application are savable and shareable. So when you build a filter set, say it's a specific group of APIs or it's just Midland County, you have the ability to save that and share that with your team. Same thing with the map settings, same thing with the table configuration. Again, just kind of continuing each one of these pieces allows you to save it and revisit it and always come back to it and share it with your colleagues to make sure that everybody is on the same page at all times. That's just something that we know is a problem, sharing and collaborating across your group. So we're continuing to build this out, and have been for the last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, and I did want to point out just from creating simple maps, if you apply a filter and say you want to show permanent activity or spuds in a specific date range, that's all achievable very quickly via the filtering. And then you can click this print option up here. You can generate, name the file whatever you'd like. You can generate a JPEG or a PDF, export it very quickly, super straightforward. Um, so Scott, I'm going to let you share and kind of walk everybody through AG grid, some quick ways to build type curves by operator, all that good stuff, and show them the grouping by option. I'm gonna remove my sharing here.
Yep, sounds good.
Let's see.
Let's see. So it should be this one. Okay, yeah, I think you can see that. Okay, yeah, so just kind of gonna really lean into the table specifically. I'm filtered to active horizontal wells, Permian Basin, and then Wolfcamp A confirmed interval, right? So I'll just kind of hit this again. Let's make sure we get our counts. And yeah, we're returning about 15,000 wells. One thing that this new table that we've implemented, right? It's an advanced table that we've integrated into the platform based off not the previous Material UI basic table. Some things that are super friendly here. we offer, you can export and download this data however you want, but you also can come in here and just grab a row of data or some block of data, some subset of data, and just straight copy paste that information out. That seems like something that's pretty simple and intuitive, but not all tables do that. As a matter of fact, most don't. So this is kind of a big deal and a big differentiator to be able to come in here and just straight copy paste data directly out of here. Ben talked quite a bit about all of our columns and everything going on here. One thing I'll do, since I'm filtered on this data, is I'll up here in the top of the table, you see this group by option. I'm going to group by current operator. So this is another feature kind of built in this table. Most tables don't support, ours does, is the ability to kind of group by something, start seeing counts, but really streamline the analytics part of our platform, right? So I'm able to kind of come down here and see all of the operators that have Wolfcamp A active horizontal Wolfcamp A wells. And then you can sit here, let's pick on somebody, right? So BTA oil producers. I drop this down, I can see all the wells nested underneath them. There's 104. Check this box. I can select all of those wells. There's the 104. I'm selecting that, and then I can go to the analytics panel. What this is going to do, since I'm over 50 wells, we give a little disclaimer here. Since you exceed 50 wells, we aggregate everything ourselves. Flip this to producing time, and you can run a type curve. So instantly, we've got the 104 wells in our analytics panel, all of this here, and we're able to generate our type curve right here, getting our volumes as to how our decline curves algorithm is working. We're not trying to, we've mentioned this several times before in demos and webinars, that we're not trying to displace the PhD wins in the areas of the world. We are just trying to give a really good answer for you to go deeper and to decide if you want to move forward with this prospect or whatever project you're working on, right? So here's our parameters. One thing that is coming here in the next several months is going to be adding economics into this. We're going to add an economics panel into this. We're adding right now the ability to save these type curve volumes off. Forecast is the same idea. You're able to save those to the database, revisit those in the future. But the next level is to have some lightweight economic parameters, adding capex, adding alpex, adding your pricing and differentials probably, and then being able to kind of model those things out, save those to the database as well. So again, continuing to lean in here. We're doing the math on the analytics side. We're updating the application, and we're continuing to deliver all of these options inside of our app. Yep. So at that point, I guess I'll toss it back. Do you want Ben? You want to jump in, or Malcolm? You want to go
Yeah,
ahead and?
yeah. Let me jump in real quick. There's a couple
Okay.
other things I want to show you guys that I know I've shown before, but there are again there's some new folks here on the call. I'll make this brief. There are some things that really do differentiate us, and a couple of those are flexibility of uploading shapefiles. Scott, if you could talk a little bit about some of the logic that we have built in to correct, broken shapefiles, missing projections, that sort of thing. I think that'd be
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah. We continue. We store all of our shapefiles in WGS84. So one thing we do is when you bring a shapefile in, we basically take whatever your projection is and put it in WGS84 to make sure it fits perfectly in our app. So when you bring that in, we put that into that projection. If you download it out of our app, it's back in that projection, right? So that's one thing we do. We do require a PRJ file inside of that to do that, to make sure that we are landing it exactly where it should be based off of the geometries and the projections. Um, and we do flag. We run these through virus protection. We do flag any type of erroneous data. Shape files come in all shapes and sizes, so we do clean them. And as you put them into our system, again, we save them to our database. So we save them in a really clean format. So then you can pull those back out and bring them into other applications. As you mentioned earlier, Ben, you're able to draw and create your shape files as well. But we can also be your repository for shape files that you put into the data product as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning it. And we have gotten a lot of feedback. So we kind of started with obviously the polygonal shapefiles. We had a number of requests from users to be able to import like lines and points as shapefiles as well. So if you think about like fault systems, or if you have tank batteries, or whatever it is that you want to upload, this gives you the flexibility to do that. I put a LinkedIn post out on this recently, but I downloaded an open source fault line shapefile in Oklahoma. and pulled that in here. And this is a very large shapefile here. So I'll show you guys how this works. Obviously, I can color code this, add a buffer. It'll take a few seconds to load, but this will overlay an extremely large shapefile on the map, which then allows you to, once it's imported, you can toggle it on, you can toggle it off. It's always present there for you. So you can see it's populated there. So now as I'm zooming into Oklahoma, the existing, the new line shapefile is obviously built in, and I can kind of do my typical due diligence with this in the background, which is pretty nice. Now via the AOIs, I can now, again, I can toggle these on or off. We have actually increased the amount of AOIs initially from 10 to now 50. Now, just to be clear, that doesn't mean 50 polygons. That means shapefiles. So if you have a 10,000 square mile shapefile in here, that would count as obviously one shapefile. You can come in and toggle, on or off any of these shapefiles as you see fit. So if you think about from a mineral management standpoint, if you have a bunch of customers, you could have an AOI per customer. If you're if you're jumping into a meeting or just a prospect meeting with one of these customers, you can jump in and actually toggle on or off all the other clients. If you just want to show one particular client, there's a lot of flexibility with that. The other thing I wanted to cover is the flexibility in which you can upload wells. So it is, just in my experience managing minerals and non-op, it can be a gigantic pain in the rear to locate API numbers at scale, whether you are screening a deal or it's just, obviously trying to kind of clean up your own inventory. Searching or finding API numbers at scale is typically, on a well by well basis. You're typing a well name into your current data provider, finding the API number. This allows you to do that at scale. So I'm going to give you guys a quick example. This is an account. This is a listing that we marketed early last year. This individual was in pay on 353 wells, and he had about 30% of the API numbers. And I certainly was not going to go find the rest of those manually. So there is a template that you can use here. It's the sample API CSV file, which is literally just well name, county, state, and API 10. So I've removed all of his API numbers from the file, and I've imported that into the UI here. So it is actually going out and it is comparing the well names that we've imported to our database and matching those proactively. So on the fly, I have matched immediately 339 of these wells to their API numbers, and it gives you a probability of a match. So from a workflow standpoint, this takes you from very messy LOS, well list, or just a ton of check stubs. Like I have mineral buyers using this that may get just a bunch of check stubs from a seller. They'll throw those into ChatGPT, get a simple CSV of unique well names and counties and states, throw those in there, populates them into the filter. You can apply the filter, generates the heat map of where those wells are located, and it's limited the well table to those wells, at which point now I can go in and export any of the header data. I can export all of the historical production. So it'll actually zip that up and send you an email with a link to the download. You can export the lease production, well test, rigs. This is all completely customizable. If you only wanted to export specific columns, you can do so very easily. And obviously, there's a much better way to do that is through a data stream direct. So I figured I do want to make sure that we really highlight the data stream direct product. This has been a massive labor of love. As you guys can appreciate, when we first launched this, with this kind of PLG model, being able to sign up, for counties and basins, we were targeting kind of the smaller customers. We were getting a ton of interest from that enterprise level as well, the operators, mineral managers, banks, that sort of thing. And it always comes down to, you can build the coolest UI in the world, but ultimately it comes down to how you get the data out. We didn't want to just, build something really quickly. We wanted to lean in really hard to make sure it is incredibly easy to get the data out and be able to kind of customize exactly what you get out of the app. So I think this is a good time for me to pass this over to our president, Malcolm Smith, so he can talk about our thought process and our philosophy behind this.
Hey guys, yeah, thanks, Ben. I'll share my screen here real quick.
And Malcolm, I think it would be helpful if these guys could hear, your background and kind of your experience and using data from other products. And
yeah, no, and absolutely. I think this is best framed up with an example. And I just in the way of background, I mean, I've spent many hours in past roles doing exactly this, right? Pulling, whether it be public or internal data. I'm a performance guy. I'm on deep wells experience, mostly reservoir and completions, both on the E&P and the consulting side. So this was my life for many years, and we knew we were going to build this from day one. We weren't quite sure how we were going to build it, but we knew that we did not want to build like a traditional REST API, right? So in prior lives, I remember pre-AI days. I'm an engineer by trade. I'm not a software developer, but I can write code. And I remember sort of the Stack Overflow days of dealing with 100-page API documents and writing R scripts to pull data through APIs, and it's just very fragile, very time-consuming stuff, right? So I want everyone to look at this as our kind of base data extraction layer, right? So what Ben said was important. One of the features associated with Data Stream Direct is that it applies to every subscription, right? So if you subscribe to a Permian Basin subscription, which you can see on the screen here, you can extract data through Data Stream Direct for Permian Basin. If you subscribe to a single county, likewise, right? So this is kind of the foundational ground floor for data extraction. So what did we do differently? Why did we not build that REST API, and how did we build it? So first of all, you'll notice on the left-hand side here, this is new with Data Stream Direct. You'll see this Data Stream Direct icon. By clicking that, it'll take you to this page. Now, there's a couple different ways to use this. I'm going to focus on the Python method. It's the simplest, but first and foremost, this is a JDBC driver, so it's a direct connection database. If you want to treat this as a database and connect directly to the data source, you can download a jar file, JDBC driver, and you can connect to it as a machine connection. Most people aren't going to do that, I think. I think most people want to interact programmatically with something like Python. And for that reason, we built a Python library specific to Data Stream Direct, right? We want to enable people that are tech savvy, that can write a little bit of code, especially in these AI days, right? That can write 2 or 3 lines of code and pull our data, whether it be Spotfire or an IDE environment. So I'm not going to go through the setup guide, but I will show you guys an example here. So hopefully some of you are familiar with Jupyter Notebook. I think it's a nice, easy display, easy way to show the data. I've got this Permian Basin sample subscription. In this Python library, it's really important to note that all you need to do is provide your credentials and then SQL-like text to query the database, right? So again, we don't want to have to paginate data. We don't want to have to worry about secrets and API keys. If you have credentials, your username and password that you would use to log into the application, you can supply those here in the Python library and connect directly to the data source, right? So you can see I've supplied the credentials for this example, a demo application or demo account I have. I'm importing our Data Stream Direct library from pip, and I've got a simple line here, right? I've got this fetch frame function, and I'm selecting everything from our well combined view, and our well combined view is basically our header data, right? Where confirmed interval equals Wolfcamp A. So I'm going to pull all header rows that are associated with the Wolfcamp A interval. And you can see in about 8 seconds, I've pulled about 17,000 rows of data, right? And this corresponds to the table that Ben and Scott were showing, right? We've got all of our header data, including spacing now in Data Stream Direct. Anything that is queryable through the application, any header value, you can filter likewise through this query string. So again, most of this is just fluff. This is connection parameters. We have one line of code here that allows you to pull header data. Now that doesn't just apply to header data, right? If I want to pull rigs data, we've got a data source in Data Stream Direct called current rigs. So this, I'm just going to pull all rigs associated with that subscription. And remember, this is a Permian Basin subscription, and you can see there are 262 rigs right now in the Permian that we've identified. Again, all attributes for every rig. Now this also extends to production data, right? So we have 6 data sources currently. We are going to be merging the production metrics data source with the header data. So we'll probably land on 5 for now until we get to the directional surveys. You can pull header data, you can pull rig data, you can also pull production data, water, oil, and gas, right? So something simple in the UI. And again, I've got a single query string here. I'm going to pull all of the liquids production data for these 4 API numbers. All of this code here is just to show a pretty plot of the production data. Right, so again, this is all about making a more elegant interaction with the data, a more user-friendly interaction that applies to all subscriptions. You don't pay more money for this. This is included with the base Energy Domain data subscription, allows you to programmatically query the data. For the Spotfire users out there, Spotfire, as most of you know, is pretty prevalent in the industry. I used Spotfire a lot in the past, and a lot of that was coding in Spotfire, trying to pull data from these APIs. We have built in custom column mapping specifically to Spotfire. So for those of you who use Spotfire that pull data in programmatically, you know that a lot of times you have to do column mapping. There's a lot of additional code that needs to be done to get that data into the Spotfire format. So we use Panda's native data tables. That's how the data through DataStream Direct is sent out. You can see here, if I go to data functions, I'm bringing in the Spotfire library, and I essentially have the same code, right? And in this case, I pulled all data from the header data. I've got a couple other queries to pull production metrics in. But again, we are doing a lot of the mappings under the hood so that you can come into Spotfire, write a very simple Python script, and do all of the wonderful things that Spotfire does in terms of analytics and visual interpretation of data, right? You can see here, I've got a very, very simple script. I'm pulling in not only the header data, but also the geometry data. So this is an important point. We have the simplified 2D geometry data in well-known text form. You can convert that very, very easily into something like Spotfire. I don't know if Scott mentioned, but we are working now on getting the full directional survey data into DataStream Direct. So that's coming soon. But basically anything that you can see in the application right now, you can pull into, whether it's an IDE, whether it's something like Tableau or Spotfire, with a few lines of code. And that was the goal. Going forward, I will touch really quickly, this applies, again, this is our sort of foundational data extraction feature. We are working on additional things. We're talking about a feature service potentially, and also a Snowflake integration. So more to come on that down the road. But as we climb up market with these enterprise customers, we recognize that a lot of folks out there need a different data extraction tool. So we're evaluating those constantly, and they're on our roadmap. Anything else I missed, Ben and Scott?
No, I think that's, and I think you hit the nail on the head as far as what you guys have access to. So we are trying to make this as easy for you guys to hop in here as possible. We do not separate access by feature or anything like that. We don't separate subscriptions or anything. So once you are subscribed, you get access to DataStream, you get access to all the features that we've shown you guys through a handful of these demos. Now, Courthouse, I'll touch on here in a bit. That will be the only kind of bolt-on cost that we have. We are building out our Courthouse application in Texas. Our goal is to get the entire Permian out by the end of Q1. We're moving on very, very quickly. We actually have over 209 counties digitized in Texas just over the last 6 months. And we are running every document through a large language model right now. So very, very exciting. We'll get some more details on that out here in the next few weeks, hopefully, and some visuals and whatnot. Obviously, be sure to come see us down at NAPE. We'll have a pretty big setup, definitely a lot more profound than our $500 booth last year. So look forward to seeing you guys all down there. The other thing I wanted to cover is I'm incredibly active as far as giving demos. I'm sure I've given a lot of personal demos to you guys here on the call. My email address I'm very accessible. It's ben@energydomain.com. If you guys are interested in a personalized walkthrough, happy to do that. And one of the things I did want to really highlight here is we've been very successful in, let's say you're in a contract right now that might expire in the next 6 months or 9 months. we can appreciate the fact that you don't want to just rip the Band-Aid off and just start with a brand new product without understanding how it works. So typically we'll kind of enter into what we call a paid trial concept, where you can come in, pay a little bit just to cover our overhead. We will set you up with as many seats as you need. We'll do training with you, kind of basically hold your hand through the process and make sure that your team has everything that you need and you can feel comfortable actually moving over. So we're happy to have those conversations with you guys. And I think, Scott, when this is over, does this direct them to the sign up page?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. After the webinar ends, you get directed to the sign up page. And we did have a question earlier that would this be recorded and sent to them? And I believe everybody who registered gets a recording emailed directly to them of this webinar. Yes.
Got it. Anything else we need to cover? I think we're pretty much right on time here, Scott.
Yeah, no, I think we're good. One question I had was, is there anything that you cannot do in the app UI that you can do in kind of the data stream direct? So I just want to hit on that real quickly. The data behind that powers the application is identical to the data that is behind data stream direct. That the data is the same. Like our job and what we pride ourselves on is creating these data pipelines to make this data and deliver the data to you, the customer. That's via multiple delivery avenues. One is in the application with a bunch of bells and whistles, like our analytics, like our table, like the map. And the other is data stream direct, which is direct access to the data that is provisioned to your credentials. So just kind of saying that the data itself is identical. Yes.
Got it. And I did want to mention, I think it's going to throw them onto the sign up page. And I do encourage you guys, as I mentioned, I mean, it's pretty low barrier to entry here. I encourage you guys, if you want to really run this side by side for a little bit, sign up for a county or a basin for a month, and then we will hold your hand through the process. If you need training, there's plenty of content also built in directly. So in our UI, and I'll show this to you guys very briefly before we depart here. In our UI, we actually have guided built-in wizards. So it shows you guys in the app how to use all the features. We also have a chat bot that is built in directly. This is not AI, it does not go offshore. This goes to our team here in Fort Worth, and our average response time is about 3 minutes. Scott's actually directly involved in a lot of that. So we are fully committed to really offering that white glove approach and making this as easy for you guys to transition over as possible. But again, we appreciate everybody's support. I mean, I can just say that, as we go kind of out into the industry, we've received an incredible amount of support and feedback. I mean, a lot of the features that we have built in, including data stream, the spacing, obviously processing the directional surveys and all that, a lot of that has been driven from customer feedback. Obviously, we have enough industry experience to get this to 80% of where it needs to go. That other 20%, we've really tried to strategically fill that in with feedback from you guys. So like I said, feel free to reach out directly to us. I encourage you guys to hop on and subscribe and give this a run. We're, like I said, as I've said many, many times, we stand behind the quality of our data and look forward to getting some more feedback.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks, guys.